Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here. It's season 2, and we're back with episode 31 of Gumbo Live. Gumbo Live is the #1 Facebook Live talk show dedicated to board gaming. Our special guest tonight, hey, how about an award-winning designer, Dennis Hoyle of Bellwether Games. Gumbo Live is a proud member of Punchboard Media. Check out our other fine members like Cloak and Meeple. Brian does a great job with his video previews and his reviews of all the latest, hottest games. Punchboard Media, where we all bring something to the table. Hit me up on social media tonight, Twitter at Board Game Gumbo, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Board Game Gumbo. We'll be looking for your questions on the chat all night tonight. Hey, enough blather. Let's get straight to our guest, Dennis Hoyle, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor to be here and to chat with you.
Dennis, you've been hit with game requests, game designs. You know what the elevator pitch is. Give us the elevator pitch of who is Dennis Hoyle and what is Bellwether Games?
Yeah, I'm just running Bellwether Games. Bellwether Games is a small game publishing studio that I run primarily by myself. I work with different people, contractors, to get the games designed and get them produced and published. Focus on making games that are fun and different. And if it fits that criteria, then it's usually something that fits the brand for Bellwether Games. I've been doing this for a couple of years. Started the business in 2011. Been working full-time here for about 2 years. And it's just a lot of fun. It's when I was growing up, that's what I wanted to do with my life, was make board games, and that's when I'm blessed to have the opportunity to do that right now. So,
Dennis, I saw in an interview you played games all your life, like most of the people that do these, that are interested in this hobby. But what's your first gaming experiences that you remember?
Growing up, losing to my dad in Risk, and that still lives with me to this day. We played Risk. This past Christmas, my sister, she also feels bitter about it. So she challenged us to a game of Risk over Christmas, and I lost again.
Oh man, I remember those days of playing Risk, man, all day on a Saturday. It would take us hours to get through the game,
Yeah, exactly. And we all used to gang up on my dad because he would always win, and good memories, but have moved on from Risk. Most.
One of the boards that I follow on Board Game Geek is the forum, the Dukes of Dice. It's a podcast I really like. Yeah. And one of the questions today on the forum was, what's the game mechanic that you hate the most? And I was kind of struggling because I love playing games. I'll play almost any kind of game and almost any kind of mechanic. But what you just said reminded me of the worst game mechanic, and it's player elimination and Risk. Because when you're out and everyone else is still playing, and you told your mom and dad you're going to be at your friend Luke's house all day playing games,
yep,
and then you're sitting there watching everybody else play Risk.
6 hours later.
6 hours later. Do you have a game mechanic that you just can't stand?
Yes, I do. It's the mechanic that slows the game down as you get closer to the end. Any game that gets slower, the closer to the end you get, that's not for me. So Phase 10 does this, where it gets increasingly harder to meet the hands that you need as you get closer to the end of the game, and I'm ready to just get out of there as fast as I can. Well,
Dennis, you are the first person here on Gumbo Live that I can remember that is an MSU Bulldog right here, an alum on Gumbo Live. We got some SEC talk, and now I think you're still working in the SEC. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I'm living in Aggie land here in Bryan College Station, Texas. So
that's right. Yeah. There's another SEC guy that's checking in. Dennis, this is a live show. We're going to interrupt some of the questions that we do because people are coming in. And my buddy Jeremy Davis, who's the Game Geek Ninja on Twitter, you probably know. In fact, I think he's.
Yeah, I've met Jeremy. We got dinner together at the Rocket City Game Fest last year in Huntsville.
It's one of the ones that I'd love to go because I love Huntsville, I love the area, and I'd love to go to Rocket City. But Jeremy says player elimination is the worst. Ninja, you are correct. It is the worst mechanic. Thank you, Jeremy, for checking in.
So I wouldn't say it's the absolute worst, but it's up there.
It's the worst. It's the worst. So I do have a question. I love the name Bellwether. Thanks. I love the fact that you guys, you want to be a leader in the industry. And hopefully your games are doing that also. But what I'm really amazed is for all Magic the Gathering fans to have in our presence right here a card Monday award winner. I mean, I remember the first time I played Magic the Gathering back in the 90s. I got in right before the Legend set, so I think it was Antiquity. And we're looking at these crazy cards with all this crazy artwork, and then we see Card of Monday. And, we didn't have Google back then. Yeah. But when we did some research and we found out it's a Belgian company that's producing these cards, and you won. If you don't mind, tell the audience real quick, how did you win the Card of Monday award?
Yeah, this was in 2010.
Inspiring ideas for all Magic fans out there.
2010, I sent a card game in. This was my card game drop site. I sent it into a contest. I was not published at this point. I never made it. I never finished a published game. I sent this prototype into the Premio Archimede. It was in a game design competition in Venice, run by Studio Ghiocchi. If you're familiar with Leo Colvini.
Sure.
He runs that studio. Yeah. And back in 2010, this is, I think, I'm not familiar if there's, how many other contests there were at the time. This is one of the ones that was running. So I sent the card game in, and it ended up winning 7th place overall and 1st place for best card game. And the prize for best card game was sponsored by Cardamundi. And what they did is they produced 1,000 copies of the game for free for me. And they also realized the artwork for free. And then they just shipped me the games. And that was the prize, is 1,000 copies of your game produced. And so that's when Bellwether Games started, is because, I suddenly had all these games on hand. And I was in grad school at the time, wanting to figure out how to run a board game business. And so here's 1,000 games, and started putting them to work, got a website put up, started selling them, started, marketing them as much as I could. And then I just kept working on games after that. And that's really how I got my start.
Dennis, do you realize how few designers get their very first game published? And of course, yours was kind of a non-traditional way to get published, but it was still published with 1,000 copies for you to start a company with. I mean, how blessed did you feel when that happened, man?
It was remarkable. I still remember, the feeling of getting the first box of games and opening them up and seeing them all produced, getting the email saying, hey, we're considering yours as one of the top 3 card games. And then getting the next email saying, hey, you won. And just kind of being in disbelief. It was really special, especially because I think for me and perhaps for other designers, there's a sense of, hey, I like designing games. I think it's fun. I think I'm good at it, but I don't really know, because it's not like you're getting graded on it like a homework, assignment or a test. So when you submit something to a competition and then they say you've won or you've ranked really highly in the competition, that's some criteria that says, well, maybe you have some ability in this, maybe you have some skill in this, and it gives you the ability to keep working on it and keep going. Whereas otherwise, you're just putting a game out there and you're not really sure if it's good or not, or if you're good at designing games. So that was a kind of a shot of confidence at the beginning, just saying, okay, maybe there's something here. I know that if I hadn't won that competition, things probably would have looked a lot differently, either just in terms of my motivation to keep going, or just not having games to sell and, not being able to start a business until further down the road. 2010 was really kind of right as Kickstarter was just starting. I'm not sure exactly when Kickstarter got started, but Kickstarter didn't really start taking off as a realistic way to produce games until a couple more years down the road. So to get in that early with a published game was really, I feel really fortunate and blessed that happened. And now I've almost sold through all 1,000 copies of Drop Site. I'm getting close. I'm getting close.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo here. It's Gumbo Live. I've got my special guest Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games, creators, publishers of Coldwater Crown, a bunch of other games, Antidote, and we're going to get to a couple of those games in a second. But I do have to ask you, Dennis, what's the best game that you've played since Gen Con? I'm always curious to hear, because there's so many games out there that come out, we just can't hear about them all.
Yeah, I think the top 2 that come to mind are the Rajas of the Ganges.
Sure.
And this next one I didn't really expect to like. And when I started playing it, I kind of was resistant. Like, I didn't want to play it because I didn't really enjoy its predecessor, Terra Mystic, very much. But the Gaia Project was very, very enjoyable when we played it the other week. And I'm I'm looking forward to playing that one again.
I can't say I liked my play of Terra Mystica, but Gaia Project looks like it solves some of the things I didn't like about Terra Mystica. I'm curious to hear what did you like about it?
You know, it had been a long time since I'd played Terra Mystica, so it's hard for me to tell you exactly what was different about it that I like so much better. Maybe it's just that I played better. You know, I only lost. I lost by 1 point too, so that's a really kind of a tough loss to have to sit with. So I'm ready to get back and try again. But you know, I wasn't a huge fan of kind of the overall look of the game, the aesthetics and the art. I think that's probably at the first, when I started playing it, that was one of the reasons I wasn't that excited about it. But then when I got into it, it all worked. I felt like it was a really good package altogether, and it was really well balanced, and a lot of the different paths to victory, it looked like. So there's some things I'd like to try next time. Steve
O'Rourke checking in from the Dukes of Dice. He's the name father over there, and he says, "Hey, Dennis and BJ, I love the Parcheesi board, or I like the Parcheesi board up on the wall."
Yeah, thanks.
Is there a story behind that?
That was my grandparents. My dad was raiding my grandparents' house when they were moving out of it, and there's tons of old stuff, and he brought home 3 huge boxes of old game pieces, and among the game pieces were just like boards like this. So one of them is the Parcheesi board you see. There was also a board. There's an old game called Around the World in 80 Days with Nellie Bly, and I don't think there's much in the mechanically with it. It looks like just a roll and move game, and I've kind of looked at the roll and move spaces, and it looks like it's broken. But the artwork is fantastic, and so we got that one, and I've done some research. It actually is worth something because it's pretty rare. But we decided to go ahead and frame those game boards. So there's 3 that are this size. It's like 30 inches by 30 inches, and so we have them hanging around our house. And I like the Parcheesi board just because it's kind of clean, and everybody knows what Parcheesi is.
Sure. So growing up in the Midwest, I guess you consider yourself a Midwesterner growing up?
I think so. So, yeah. People spot my accent, and I don't think I really have one, but they say, you grew up in the Midwest, didn't you? Yep, you got me.
I was curious as to whether you had played a game called Euchre. Is that
we used to play Euchre. I'm not a big fan, but
so I've never played it, and I've always heard of a lot of podcasts talk about Euchre. And the other day I was talking to a guy that went to the local school here at University of Louisiana, UL, and he talked about playing a game called Euchre. And when he described the game, it was exactly the way that podcasters talk about Euchre. And I was like, how would a game from the Midwest get down here? Doing a little bit of research, I found out that a distant cousin of mine who started the University of Louisiana Library, the Dupree Library, she had gone to school up there, and she and a couple other friends had gone up to school in the Northeast and in the Midwest, and they brought the game back here in the 20s and 30s, and it's still played today, but they just know it as the French version, Euchre, because Euchre, if you say it in Cajun French, would be Euchre. And I can't, so it's just a transplanted game. I was just wondering if you're just not a big fan of it.
Yeah, we used to play it. There was a family camp I used to go to. We used to play it there, Euchre. We used to play that in spades. And then as I started getting older and getting into European strategy games, I started bringing those, but I couldn't get people into them as much. But yeah, spades and Euchre had a big place. Yeah, Euchre, it felt, maybe I'm just not good enough, but it felt way too based on the luck of the draw and what you had in your hand. But it was fun. It was light. It was just an easy game to pull out and play.
So I talked to a lot of people on Gumbo Live. BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, Gumbo Live with Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games. And I talked to a lot of designers, publishers that use Kickstarter. And you mentioned Kickstarter yourself. And not all of them are able to fund their very first project on Kickstarter. But you did. Looking back on it. I mean, was it hard work? Was it a little bit of luck? Was it the hard work that made the luck? How do you explain how you knocked it out of the park, your very first one with Antidote?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything you said. I mean, I prayed hard, and there's some luck involved, and I worked hard, and took a lot of time to design the game. That Antidote was several years in development. It really went through the ringer on playtesting. I think that helped a lot. Got a great designer for the artwork. I think that's what sells it now is the artwork, and then people play it and after they play it with their friends, they want to pick up a copy for themselves.
What's your philosophy on playtesting? Are you the kind of guy that wants to hear the negative feedback, or do you just want to see what the problems are of the game and let me, the designer, figure out how to fix those?
A little bit of everything. I mean, I want to know if it's broken, obviously, but usually I don't let people see a game until I think it's not broken, generally. So I try to do all the design work, as much design work as I can in my head and by myself in solo playtest until I know that it's not broken. Then I let people see it. But I really want to know how many times people are, like, how eager people are to play it again. There are a lot of the games I make are at least the ones that I design, are simpler. They don't have too many rules or things that are going around. So I'm not usually looking at balancing so much as I am looking at, like, how fun is it? How interested are people in coming back to the game over and over again? Because that's the most valuable piece of information. If people play it once and they're kind of done with it, then I'm not going to utilize my time and my resources to go and, run a Kickstarter project and get it out there, because I can't do that many games since it's just me working here. So, but if I get a lot of feedback where people are playing it over and over again, and there's exuberant interest in it, then that tells you something about whether or not the game is worth pursuing to the next level. There's a lot of average games out there, and what I'm really looking for is a game that gets people excited. And so when I'm doing play tests, I'm watching people, paying attention to how interested they are, seeing if they're wanting to keep playing, if they want to play it again, if they, are asking me, like, when's this game coming out? That type of feedback is really important, because the deeper I get into the process, it's hard for me to know sometimes if it's how fun it is, just because I'm so absorbed in the game. It's such a deep level. It's hard to kind of take a step back and be like, what's somebody's first interaction with it like? So that's the most important thing for me. And then also just getting people's eyes on the rules. And so I'm about to send out several prototypes. The game is at a place where I feel like it's not broken. I've play tested it several times on my own, but now I'm trying to get it in front of other people who've never seen it before, so that they can read the rules, see if they can figure out how to play it. And that way, that's just that first step of making sure this game is a complete game. So when it actually comes out on shelves, like, these rules have been written, people can read it and learn how to play without me sitting there and teaching that to them. So I don't know if that answers your question entirely, but yeah.
Steve O'Rourke checking in says, hey, Euchre, or you, because we know it was his very first trick taker. I got to have to try this game. I know you're not a big fan, but I'm going to have to try it.
Oh, it's good. You'll like it, but yeah.
Jeremy says, hey, it helps when we were talking about how you got past that first Kickstarter hurdle. It helps that those are good games. Maybe that is the secret to Kickstarter. Design a good game. Put a lot of hard work into it before you even put it out there. Yeah. Dennis, we've seen, as you have, I'm sure, we've seen projects on Kickstarter that you wonder, why did they even put it on there yet? It clearly wasn't ready. Yay? Nay? Come on.
I try to not look at Kickstarter projects these days.
Okay. Fair enough.
I spend a lot of time researching them before running one, and I continue to spend a lot of time looking at them. These days, I try to not spend my time looking at Kickstarter campaigns more than I can help it.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo here with my guest, Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games. Speaking of great games, you've got a couple of games out that I want to chat with you about. One of the reasons I got you on the show is Jake Bach and Danielle are always from the Draft Mechanic podcast. Are always talking about Coldwater Crown. They're like your biggest,
great guys.
They're your biggest fans when it comes to that game. I'm dying to try it, and I know you've got an expansion. But before we get to that one, I do want to talk about the sensation of the internet, Mars Open.
Yeah.
Look, I love flicking games. When I was at Dice Tower Con this summer, me and Jack my son Jack, we got enamored with this game, Flip Ships by Kane Klinko. I don't know if people have seen it. Mm-hmm. And so I have a bunch of these flicking games. What, in your mind, because you designed Mars Open, if I'm right?
Yes. I designed it. I like to say I discovered it.
Okay. When you're designing a flicking game, I'm curious, did you think I need to design a flicking game, or did you have an idea for, hey, nobody's invented a golf game yet?
No, here's the story. So
I'm curious.
I I had made its prototype for a different game, and they used these square cards, and that went nowhere. But the cards sat on my desk, and when I was just thinking about something else, my hands just reached for the card and started making this shape. I wasn't even thinking about what I was doing. Anyways, the shape for the what is now the Mars Open golf ball sat on my desk for probably 6 to 9 months, and I never thought anything about it. It just sat there. I started every now and then I would just kind of tap it and flick it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I never threw it away for some reason. And eventually I really started paying attention to the fact that, wow, when you flick this thing, it lands the same way no matter how you flick it. Like, it always lands. And so I started thinking maybe this could be a cool component for a game. And I started thinking about maybe it would be a children's game where there are these frogs jumping around, because they kind of hop like frogs.
It's true.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever flicked one or not.
I've seen a bunch of the videos.
Yeah. So they kind of hop like frogs.
Internet sensation.
And why I say discovered it, well, that's part of the reason I say discovered it, but also let me take a step back. Then I decided, no, this is not a children's game, because I started flicking it in ways that, it soared and spun in different arrangements in ways that took a little more skill. And that's when it hit me that it needed to be something simple. And so when your question was what makes a good flicking game, I would just say, I think it needs to be simple. I think it needs to be something you can pick up pretty quickly and understand what's going on without having to learn a lot of rules. But, and then as far as discovery is concerned, it's like, the shape, it's amazing to me that this shape that just ended up my desk is so versatile. Like even after the Kickstarter campaign was over, I was still discovering new ways to flick this thing that would help me get through specific challenges in the game. So it's really cool that, that I've, been able to have it as a shape for a game. And I think it makes just a really great game piece. And I think I don't know if you're going to get the game or whatever, you get a chance to try it, just experiment with the different ways you can flick it. And that's part of the fun of the game is, it's not just one thing you can do with it. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. And then it's all just, I don't know, how familiar the viewers are with Mars Open Tabletop Golf, but it's just golf. I mean, the game is, if you've ever played golf or miniature golf, you know how to play Mars Open, except that you have not yet mastered the skill of how to flick this thing.
Right.
And there's a lot of different ways to do it. So
part of the golf. Where do you see Mars Open going? I mean, it seems like this thing is rife with just almost carcassoning it with just expansions and new holes, new things to do. What do you envision for Mars Open?
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas, as you might imagine. I mean, there's so many different things that could be done. I had to, I really had to structure myself in choosing stretch goals, because it was like, let's think about stretch goals, and we could do this, we could do that, we could do this, we could do that. And it's like, no, we got to do one thing first and do it well, and do the next thing and do that well. We're going to take it one step at a time, because right now we've done a successful Kickstarter. I just delivered the files to the printer, so it's probably going to arrive to backers in June, get on store shelves July.
So on schedule then.
Yeah, but then there's this question mark of how well received it's going to be in the marketplace. Are people going to play it and teach their friends, and then are their friends going to buy a copy for their families and keep playing it, or is it going to have a short lifespan? So, if it's more the former where people are really excited about it and it continues to sell, then there's a lot that can be done with it. There's one expansion in particular that I think is probably going to be first. I'm not going to give any details on that per se,
okay. But we're always willing for a scoop here.
Yeah. But
we got a scoop from Jamie Stegmeyer last week.
I know.
Give it to us.
Well, I guess this would be new, but if we do end up going that route, that would be launching probably later this year on Kickstarter, okay, as like a small Kickstarter. So that's not something I've mentioned, I don't think, publicly in any way. So there you go. But
there it is, the scoop. Would you agree that Mars Open is a perfect convention type of game, that when people see it at a convention, it's one of those things like when you walk by flip ships and you're watching people, poking those rocket ships into the big box. That's the kind of thing I want to try it. Don't you think Mars Open kind of has that too?
It is. Well, I was at BGG Con demoing it at the booth. I don't know if you
I missed
went to the
no,
vendor
no.
hall.
Actually, some of the crew was there, so I'll have to ask them if they saw you there. So
yeah. What we would do is, as people would walk by, we would just say, "Hey, just flick this thing. Just come up and flick it." And more often than not, people would get drawn into it, because once you start flicking it, then you start flicking it different ways, and then you have to flick. Then you have to flick through the hole, at least one hole, and then whenever you sink your ball into the hole the very first time, like I can visually, like I can watch somebody and like the light goes off in their head. Like as soon as they sink it, it's like that felt good. And then they want to, continue playing. So there's definitely some presence there. I haven't noticed so much just immediate like awe or like huge interest from people just walking by, because there's a lot of pink. Maybe the pink turns some people off, but
there is a lot of pink.
I think the more there's a lot of pink. But I think
is
the more
an homage to the Red Planet, I guess.
Yeah, I just felt like the Red Planet is always so like the artwork is always so like dull and boring. I'm like, we need to do something that's fun looking. Like Mars doesn't have to be so dull all the time. So that's why it's pink.
It's eye catching.
Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, I mean, people have stopped by and looked at it, but I'm interested to see whether or not it catches on more.
Any plans for Mars Open at conventions this summer? You're going to be demoing it?
Yeah, I'm
still working on that.
Still working on it. It's not going to be. I wanted to release it maybe at BGG Spring, or another convention I'm going to in Houston is Comic Palooza. That's in May, but I don't think it's going to be out by then. And then I was thinking about maybe going to Origins and releasing it there, but Origins is a tough convention for kind of a one-person show like I am. So
yeah, and you missed OwlCon. That was it wasn't ready for that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't ready for that. But at least I'm planning to go to Board Game Bash. That's in Austin.
Okay.
So it'll be out by then, and then BGG in November.
Are you a Gen Con guy?
I've gone to Gen Con, but since I moved to Texas, it becomes a little bit more expensive and difficult to do.
It is tough. BJ from Board Game Gumbo. I've got my guest Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games here. There's another game I wanted to talk to you about, the one that we had mentioned earlier that Jake and Danielle talk about all the time, and that's Coldwater Crown. Coldwater Crown. There's just not many games out there that have a fishing in the way that you have as a theme. New Bedford does have whaling, but it doesn't have fishing as the theme. I'm curious. You didn't design Coldwater Crown, but obviously you were a big part of the development, I'm assuming?
Right. So the story here is, Brian Surrey, he designed the Coldwater Crown. I wouldn't say that I was really particularly involved in development, but I did do some playtesting with him and gave him some feedback in some of the earlier versions. So I met Brian at Milwaukee Proto Spiel in 2013, I think. And I played his game. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game Paradox.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, Brian designed Paradox, and he was playtesting a prototype at Milwaukee Proto Spiel. And I was just amazed with the mechanics of it, because Brian, unlike just a lot of kind of new designers, I don't think he'd had anything published at that time. But unlike a lot of other designers, he didn't rely heavily on text in his game. There weren't a lot of cards you had to kind of read, and you had different abilities. You had to kind of figure out what they did. His game was very innovative and interesting with almost zero. The mechanics in Paradox were each person's kind of solving their own kind of puzzle in front of them, and then that interacts with different cards you're picking up that are going to earn you points based on multipliers. It's all about kind of saving the timeline. A really unique game, really unique experience. So I kind of filed that in the back of my head. I hadn't worked with another designer at that point to publish a game. Anyways, I kind of kept up with Brian. I interviewed him for my website at the time. I was doing interviews with designers. And then one day he posted something on Twitter, just a picture of this kind of rondelle mechanic with these discs with numbers on them. And it looked unique to me because I hadn't seen a lot of prototypes that had done something like that at that point. And so I said, hey, can we check it out? He was local. I was living in Southern Illinois at the time, and he was living in the St. Louis area. So we were pretty close. So we got together, and I played what was then something with a totally different theme. But the kind of the core mechanics were sort of there. I gave him some feedback. He went back, worked on it some more, did some more playtesting. We met again, I think, or talked some more. He gave me a prototype to play. I played it on my end. And then one day he said, do you like fishing? And he sent me a text and he had a picture of this game, and he he put together this prototype, and it was essentially the same game, but then with a lot of, everything was kind of streamlined to be about fishing. And since I'd played the original game, I knew that there's probably a really good gameplay there. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'm interested in fishing because I want games with new themes, just like we were talking about earlier. Like, I kind of get tired of the same old themes that are reused, and fishing hadn't really been done. And so we met up again, played what is now, I mean, at that point, it was almost completely done. So there wasn't a lot of development work I had to do at that point, besides just figuring out some of the component issues and the artwork issues, and how to kind of make it smoother from that standpoint. But yeah, so Brian, I'm really glad that I was able to maintain kind of that relationship with him, and he's been fantastic to work with. And he has other designs coming out as well that I've played, got an opportunity to try. So Coldwater Crown, say again.
I said he's up and coming. It sounds like, man.
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think you'll see more stuff from him soon. He really knows what he's doing. He play tests really hard, and he knows how to fix things, and he knows how to focus on what's important in a game. And it's really kind of fun to watch him work and to see what he comes up with. And he designs quickly too, so which is really amazing.
When he brought out Coldwater Crown, did it have did it already have the capability to be expanded? In other words, did he already have some ideas, or is that something that you went back and said, hey, let's revisit this game?
Actually the C. So the C expansion is coming to Kickstarter probably in June. We're gonna. That's my goal right now.
Sure.
Yeah, the C expansion. He designed it almost immediately after he designed the base game. So it's been around in our minds for a while to do. But Coldwater Crown itself is a complete game. I mean, and it's been getting a lot of great reviews as a standalone game, as the base game, but Brian and I, in the back of our heads, has been like, we love the sea. It's like we love this expansion. We really want to do it because it just adds a really great extra dimension to the game. So we've been looking forward to it. I just hadn't had the time to do it until now. So now we're getting the artwork put together. You can go on Board Game Geek and give us a thumbs up on the cover image. The cover is going to just expand the base game cover. So when you set both boxes next side by side, they're going to match up, and you're going to just see one continuous image.
Well, I like that.
So go on Board Game Geek and like that, and that'll be helpful for us.
Jeremy mentioned something. One of the things that people have raved about when they talk about Coldwater Crown, the original game, is the artwork from Beth Sobel. And he said, Jeremy says, can't wait for this expansion. Is Beth on board for the art? And I think he's talking about the sea. Oh, great. So it'll be how is it working with Beth? They tell me that a lot of the working with her is done all by email, by internet, by phone calls. What's your relationship with Beth?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I mean, I just contacted her through email. I think it was almost 2 years ago now, before we got started working on Coldwater Crown, and she's really great to work with. Has always been really great with communication. Obviously, her artwork is fantastic. She obviously is getting more and more recognition these days, and more attention, and getting picked up by more and more authors. I probably won't be able to afford her, at some point, but I was at the time.
She is very distinctive with her art. I mean, you almost she's one of those artists that when you see her work, you go, "Oh yeah, that's a Beth design," Yeah, exactly. It's not that they look the same at all. In fact, they don't. I mean, Coldwater Crown doesn't look like viticulture, but you when you put them together, you can see kind of the same hand there.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you find her? I mean, what drew you? Because it sounds like when Coldwater Crown came out, she was still kind of relatively unknown, right?
I guess so. I mean, she wasn't relatively unknown as far as I was concerned. I paid attention to Lanterns. She did the illustration for Lanterns, which was really, really popular, and viticulture I was familiar with because was familiar with Stonemaier Games and the work that they were doing. So yeah, there was a couple different artists we were looking at for Coldwater Crown. I wasn't actually sure at the time whether or not we wanted to go with more kind of the realistic look that she does. Okay. But she did a couple at the time. She did a couple samples of what it might look like, and it turns out that she was a perfect fit for it, I think. actually the first time she did a fish, she did an illustration for a fish. I was completely sold on it. I commissioned her for just one fish and to see what that would look like, and I was like, she really nailed it. And it's been fun to work with her. I hope I get the chance to work with her in the future for other projects. We'll see. For now, I'm just glad that we were able to get her for the expansion into Coldwater Crown, because it wouldn't be the same if she didn't do the artwork for the expansion. Like I said, with the boxes going to be matched up, like I couldn't have a different artist do it like that. And then the board, the Coldwater Crown, the C is going to come with a C board, and that's going to match up and line up with the regular board as well. So it all has to kind of be the same art style. And if it wasn't, it really wouldn't kind of have the same effect. So.
Yeah, that brings a question to my mind. So you call it Coldwater Crown. Basically, it's self-contained. It's a game that you can play. It doesn't need expansions. What does the C bring to it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about how the gameplay works for people who may not be familiar with it. But
sure.
Coldwater Crown is a set collection game, and it's a worker placement game. The kind of the unique hook to the worker placement is you're always placing your worker, and it's two-sided. So there's a powerful side, and then there's a less powerful side. You're placing your worker, and wherever you place it, that lets you manipulate tackle bait in your tackle box. And as you're manipulating your bait, that's how you arrive at catching a fish. There's some of the fish that are on the screen there. And then the second part of your turn, so every turn has two steps. The first step is you're placing a worker, you're taking an action to manipulate some of that bait. And the second step of your turn is you're picking up a different worker, you're flipping it over, and you're taking action from that worker to manipulate some different bait. And so that kind of one step, two step cast reel mechanic has this really smooth feel to it. And anyways, in the game, you're manipulating the bait in your tackle box whenever you cast the last piece of bait from a particular zone. You can see on the picture there's 4 zones in your tackle box. Whenever you cast the last piece, then you catch a fish. And you catch a fish that relates to the same zone number as the color of bait that you cast last from that zone. So it's really this unique puzzle where you're trying to figure out how you can cast bait in the right order so that the very last color is the one that you need to catch the fish. And then it's kind of made more exciting by the fact that you're racing other players to catch particular fish. So you can beat them to the trophies that are higher in points. So you really have to be engaged the whole time to make sure that the pieces you need in your tackle box are at the right place in the right time so you can beat other players out. So in Coldwater Crown the Sea, what we do is we add another turn action. So in the base game, you can go to port, and when you go to port, you fill up spaces in your tackle box with more bait. Or you can take Master Angler cards to catch, and those are caught a slightly different way than the other fish. Well, the sea lets you go to port, and then you can move your sea vessel, which is going to be a piece that's going to come in the game. Every player is going to get this special sea vessel. You move that out to the seaboard, and when you're at sea, it makes logical sense that you can't catch fish from the other fishing locations because you're out at sea, you've rented this kind of bigger fishing trawler, and when you're out there, you can only catch the fish that are at sea. Well, those sea fish are kind of more lucrative to catch. Okay. They are bigger, they have heavier weights, and there's a special scoring element to it where it doesn't score the same way as the other fish on the board. But they're also wild in color, so you can use any color you need to catch them. But whenever you're out there, you can't catch the ones back on the mainland. And that's where the strategy really comes in, is how long am I going to stay out at sea working on these sea fish, which are going to get me these really great bonus points when I'm missing out on opportunities to catch the fish that I need for kind of the bulk of my points back at the mainland. Because it costs me
your luck out there to see
a little bit like pushing your luck. I mean, you're making the decision for yourself about how long you want to wait and do that, because so I mean, I guess you could call it push your luck, but it's really strategic based as far as like you can come back at any time, and it doesn't cost you an action to come back, but it does cost you an action to go out. So that's you have to sacrifice a little bit to be out there. And then we're going to add another piece of tackle, which is going to give players the ability to take a free port action. And then we're also going to add some solo rules for the sea expansion as well. So the solo game for Coldwater Crown has been pretty well received, and then we're going to add some special rules for that. So, and then there's going to be 5 new species of fish as well that come with the game.
So new tackle, new fish, enhancements to the solo game. A lot of stuff going on there. Do you have a time period for the Kickstarter? You talked about June, you said?
Yep, June so far is what the plan is. We'll see if we can hit that.
MSRP on it yet, or still working on that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I have a few numbers, but I'm not ready to say anything. Yeah.
Steve says he likes the idea. The boxes will make a Tokaido style panorama.
Right.
Tokaido is one of his favorite games, by the way.
It's a good game.
And he likes that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So that's Coldwater Crown, The Seas, coming to Kickstarter in June. Is this the end of the expansions, or if it does well, could we see some more content?
We'll see.
We'll see. To the soil. Tough nut to crack.
Sorry. Yeah, no, Brian, I can say this. Brian and I have been working on another game that will probably have a similar, that will may kind of fit the same universe. And that may be coming, that would be coming next before another expansion to Coldwater Crown. So, and then like with any of my games, we got to see how it goes. So if Coldwater Crown the Sea is not particularly well received, then maybe we won't do another one. I'm not sure. I will say this though, as if you are interested in more information about the sea, go to bellwethergames.com/news.
Okay.
And click on the article at the top there. And you can sign up to get an automatic update whenever we launch the Kickstarter.
I have been trying to think of one, and there's the name father, bringing it home, bringing the heat. It's not surprising that a man named Hoyle plays his cards close to the vest. That's why we call him the name father. Hire this man. I keep telling people, hire him. He's going to do your PR for you. He's got a million of those things, Dennis. Oh, there's Dan Cheston coming in from the Filler and Gateway group run by Chuck Yeager. Not that Chuck Yeager, but a very nice Chuck Yeager who runs the Gateway and Filler Games group on Facebook. Dan says, plenty of fish off the coast of Alaska just begging to be hooked.
Well, yeah, actually, Dan, you make a great point. And I had conversations with this. I've had conversations about this with people before about how versatile Coldwater Crown is to being expanded to just different regions. Like Coldwater Crown itself is based on the North Atlantic. The fish are in the North Atlantic. Personally, one that's close to my heart would be like the North Woods, Boundary Waters, northern Minnesota, Great Lakes. That probably comes from my Midwest background. Like Dan, you just said, Alaska. There's
the Gulf of Mexico,
right? The Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. So there's different, a lot of different places to go. Kind of like Ticket to Ride. They go over,
All right, BJ from Board Game Gumbo live here with my special guest, Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games, talking about his upcoming Kickstarter for Coldwater Crown, the expansion, The Seas, and also Mars Open Tabletop Golf that's coming out. You should have in stores this summer. Isn't that right?
July, probably.
That's great. Yeah. Last thing we always do on Board Game Gumbo Live is a little game we call the Envie Game, Dennis. Envie is a little Cajun word that we use. Some people maybe in the Midwest would say a hankering for, maybe. I know Stephen Bonacore said it's a jonesing. It's something you really want to do, something you really want. We call that the Envie. In this case, don't tell us. It's our job to try to guess what it is. What's that game out there right now? It could be a game that you own in your collection, a game you've never gotten to play before, a game you don't own. If we could stop the broadcast right now and you could play with anybody, what game would it be? Don't tell us. We're going to try to guess. You have something in mind?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah, think of it.
Okay.
You got it. Okay, good. And so right off the bat, it's not Parcheesi because you didn't look that way.
Wait,
right?
Sorry, I'm losing your audio for a second. All right, go again. Sorry.
I said right off the bat, it's not Parcheesi because you didn't look that way, right?
Sorry, one more time.
Can you hear me?
Parcheesi? I can hear you now. It's not Parcheesi.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to some of those questions. Look, it's going to be about 20 questions. This is a live show, so Steve O'Rourke or the Game Geek Ninja or Dan or whoever's checking in, they'll be throwing questions at you. But my questions, I'll try to limit it to about 20, and then we'll see if we can get it. So here's the first question. Is it a competitive or cooperative game?
I'm only going to accept yes or no questions.
Oh, that's not the rules of this game, Dennis Oil.
Oh, okay.
This is not where words. This is Envie because Ted Alsbach has that. We can't break his where words.
I will only accept questions that can be answered with a number. No.
Oh, really? Okay, that would be tough. Luckily, there's only about 90,000 games on BGG, so this shouldn't take long.
It is competitive.
It is a competitive game. Okay. Is it an American designer or a European designer? And I'm going to guess a European designer.
I think yes.
Ooh, I may be in trouble because the game I'm thinking that you were thinking, you wouldn't have hesitated on. Uh-oh, Steve, you might have me here. Dan says, Dennis has altered the rules. Pray he does not alter them further. We will not allow that, Dennis. No, Dan, we will not allow that on this show. All right, so he says he thinks it's European, you said?
I think so. I actually don't know. I couldn't quote the author to you, so.
Ooh. Okay, let's see. Is it board-based or card-based?
Board-based.
Board-based. Hey, Dan, why don't you get some questions in there, man? Let's see if we can get this figured out. All right, would you say it's a Ameritrash or a Euro or the new style hybrid games that we've been seeing coming out?
It's a Euro.
It's a Euro, okay. Does it have a theme or is it just strictly an abstract?
Thematic.
That's thematic. All right. So to recap, we've got a competitive game. You think it might be a European designer, board-based Euro that has a theme. Oh, has it come out recently, like in the last 3 years?
Yes.
Oh, man, I'm really in trouble because that is nowhere near the guess I was going to make. Let's say, Dan wants to know, are there any cubes in the game? Is it cube pusher, as we call it?
Yes. There are cubes, yes.
Dan, that was shaky. Steve wants to know, was it released in the last 5 years?
Yes.
Oh, he says yes, Steve. So it's in the last 3 to 5 years. We now know. That's true, because my 3 year was earlier. That's right, Steve. Sorry about that. Has it won any awards?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to his knowledge. It didn't win the Cardamundi Award? No?
It did not. Not that I know.
Game Geek Ninja wants to know, does it have a historical theme?
No, not historical.
Not a historical theme. All right. So we got a competitive game, thinks it's European, board-based, Euro, has a theme. It has come out recently in the last 3 years, probably hasn't won any awards. Does it have minis? I know it has cubes, but does it have minis, miniatures?
No miniatures.
No minis. Is it a legacy game?
No.
No, not a legacy game. All right, let's see. Not a historical theme. We gotta think of a theme. Is it? Oh man, not historical. Dan wants to know: are we farming in this game? Is it farming in the Mediterranean?
It's not Concordia.
That was my second choice.
No, I love Concordia, but it's not Concordia. No, we're not farming. Is that the question? No.
Yep. Is it? Are we farming in this game? No. Not farming. It's not historical. Oh man, let's see. Would you consider it kind of a short game filler, like 30 minutes or less?
No.
Is it your typical? What does Chris Kirkman call it? The hour of power game or something like that. About so Coldwater Crown plays in about an hour, right?
No. It does. Yes, Coldwater Crown does play in about an hour, but the game is not an hour of power game.
So it's longer than that. Is it a space theme?
Yes.
Is it a really long game?
No.
Oh, so it's not TI4. Okay, dang it. That would have been funny because we've had TI4 2 or 3 times on this show. Huh. People have an envie to play TI4. Okay, so it's longer than an hour, and it is a space theme.
Yes.
All right, Steve, Jeremy, Dan, that's some pretty good hints there from Dennis. Oh, let's see, board. So it's not alien artifacts. It's board-based. Oh, man. In the last 3 years. Let's see if we have anything. Is there money in the game? Is money used in the game?
Yes.
Money is used in the game. Is it the Gaia project?
It is.
Oh yes. 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 Sean, you're too late. You did not get in there.
I think we're playing it this Friday too, so.
Are you really? So Sean guessed Terraforming Mars. Not it. And Steve said Zaya. Zaya does have minis.
Does have minis. Painted minis now.
Yep. Nice painted minis. I know they're on Kickstarter right now. That new Zaya thing. So the Gaia project, that's the one. Dan says, boom. He would not have guessed that.
Yeah, I would have
The
guessed
reason
either.
I cheered, Dennis, I don't win this game ever. I very rarely win this game. Sean's won. Steve's won. Everybody else seems to win. I am just terrible at this game. There's thousands of games out there. So what do you think was my first guess? Which blew me away whenever you steered away from it.
At what point did we steer away from it?
The third question, when you weren't second question, when you weren't sure if it was European.
Did you think I was thinking about a European or an American designer?
Absolutely. I was thinking right off the bat, one of two games. You've mentioned them on many, many other podcasts and interviews. And I was like, okay, it's got to be one of these two games.
Oh, okay. You're probably maybe like Hanabi or
Nope.
Something by Seven Wonders, perhaps.
Think of a design that has a name on it, and that person actually didn't design the game. Does that give you a hint? You're going to die when I tell you. The game designer on the box didn't design the game. But you've met him.
Oh, you're thinking of Stone Age, perhaps? Something by Bernd Bernhofer?
Something by Bernd Bernhofer. Very, very good.
St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg.
I love St.
Petersburg. Remember right, it's Jay Tummelson, Bernd,
right,
and another designer,
Michael Tommelhofer,
Tommelhofer, and they combine the names into one name, and that's the name that's on the box.
Yeah, actually, no, it's Jay Tummelson and Bernd Bernhofer, and they combined to Michael Tummelson. And maybe I think the third one is Michael Kiesling. I don't know though.
I don't think it was Kiesling. There was another designer, but they actually scrunched the names and made that name. And it wasn't for years that people thought, oh, that was the person. When in reality, it was Jay and Bernd that designed it. But somebody told me that I think I heard that you actually got to meet Bernd. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, actually, that's a really fun, cool story. I mean, it's quick. I was an undergrad, and my friends and I went to Europe, and while we were there, this is pre-Kickstarter at this point, and Hans im Glück was on most of the games that I owned at the time. Sure. Either Hans im Glück or Rio Grande or some co-publication of them. So we were in Munich, and we're like, let's go see if we can get in, go meet Hans im Glück. And we just emailed them, and they said, hey, we're having this game night. You can come by. And so we went by, and we got. That's
how you set it up. Just emailed the company and said, hey, we're in town. We'd like to visit you guys.
Yeah, I mean, their studio was. I mean, it's a small studio, just a couple of rooms, and so Bernd was there. There were other people there. I think Andreas Seyfarth was there.
Sure, Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There were probably other people in the room that I would say could probably say their names. You probably would know who they were, but I didn't get a chance to meet everybody. So we played a couple games. I bought Turn in Taxis from them. My friend bought Stone Age, got it signed. It was a pretty cool experience for a couple of college kids at the time. They gave us little Carcassonne gummy bears. They're shaped like little meeples. So.
I mean, sitting there with Hans im Glück, and we see these names on these boxes, and we forget they're just a couple of people, a couple of guys that like to play games and started a company, right?
Yep, that's so true. Yeah, people. Game designers. I mean, we put them on a pedestal a little bit because this is our industry and this is our hobby, and we we're totally into it, but we forget that most of us are.
There's a thread today on the Dice Tower Facebook page that's all about a lady or a man, I can't remember who it was, said something about, hey, there's so much name dropping in these podcasts. Doesn't that irritate you a little bit? And I'm going, name dropping? I could say any of these names we mentioned tonight, any one of them, to most of my high school and college friends, to 99.9% of them, and they'd be like, who?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not name dropping. The community is so small that every time I run into a convention, you just meet people. It's as natural as just going to Albertsons and seeing your buddy in the checkout line. You know what I mean? It really is like that. If you go to any convention, you're going to run into these people who are giants in the industry and sit there and will just visit with you and just talk with you. Do you know any other hobby or entertainment industry, part of the entertainment industry where you can just walk up to people like that? Dennis, I'm sure
people are super friendly too. I mean, and people are like, yeah, come play a game with us. So it's like you're playing games with people that that are famous on the hobby level. Yeah.
Come play a game with us. I mean, that's exactly right. I'm always blown away by how great of a hobby this is, and I love having it. Well, Dennis, man, I've enjoyed this visit. I really have. It's been a great time. So glad that you got to come in.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.
Yep. So it's BJ from Board Game Gumbo. It's my guest, Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games. Bellwether Games has a Kickstarter coming out. How can people best get in touch with you, Dennis?
Dennis at bellwethergames.com is my email, or like I said, you can go to bellwethergames.com/news, click on that news article about Coldwater Crown, and sign up to get the notification when we launch on Kickstarter.
Are you active on Twitter?
Bellwether Games on Twitter.
At Bellwether Games on Twitter. That's BELLWETHER. Not like the weather. Bellwether right. Like the Ram, right?
Like the Ram, exactly. You got it. That's also right. On Instagram, Bellwether Games, and Facebook /Bellwether Games.
Well, Dennis, thank you for coming in. Good luck on the Kickstarter this summer in June. We're going to be looking for that for Mars Open and for Coldwater Crown, the Sea coming out. And until next time, Dennis, laissez le bon temps rouler.